Welcome to Life with Strings Attached. I'm your host, Jamie Gale. There are certain figures in guitar making whose influence runs so deep that it begins to shape not just the instruments, but the way we think about them. Ervin Somogyi is one of those voices. His influence can be felt across generations of makers, names like Jason Kostal, Michihiro Matsuda, Mario Beauregard, and Raymond Kraut, but to name a few. Each carry forward a piece of that thinking in their own way. In this conversation, we move far beyond the guitar as an object and into the philosophy of sound, perception, and the quiet discipline of listening. We explore what it means to truly understand tone, why hand skills have been undervalued in modern culture, and how small, intentional changes can unlock profound differences in an instrument's voice. Ervin reflects on a lifetime of questioning, refining, and perhaps most importantly, remaining curious. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Ervin Somogyi, and I hope that you will too.
It's taken me a long time to come to terms with, or to be able to think of myself as being worthwhile. Because that was never an element of my having grown up.
That's interesting. Let me juxtapose my own experience for just a second, because there's similarities but yet differences. My parents never told me that I wasn't good enough. My mother believed in me a great deal. My father is just he wasn't against me. He would support what we were doing. However, there's no one in my family with an interest set that I have. A very large family. I have more than 150 first cousins because my dad's one of 14 kids. And there's just no one else like me in the family. And so it took me a long time to realize that I thought differently, because actually no one in the family recognized. You know what I mean? So if you have, and I have, as people who are curious and intelligent and interested in other people, you see young people with a great deal of potential, and you probably make a point of telling them. I tell them, if there's a waiter who I think is doing an excellent job, I'm like, keep doing this. You're doing a great job. You're going places. I didn't have someone like my family. They're loving and supportive, but they just didn't have the wherewithal to say, if we feed into this guy, it'll turn into something more.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. And so, and you had the challenge to sort of realize you were, now, did you feel like you were unworthy? Did you feel like there's a difference between not knowing and feeling like you couldn't be, or something of the sort?
No, I felt like I was never good enough. I mean, that's what I was taught. And that took me a long time to get past.
Are you past it?
Working on it.
Yeah.
However, last year I had one of my epiphanies that, I haven't wasted my life. Which is probably odd for you to hear, but was a feature of my life.
It's not as odd as you might imagine. There are many guitar makers, particularly of your generation, that have this sort of existentialist, sort of Foucaultian sort of self-hatred, that they don't feel like they can celebrate their successes. They don't feel that they can be good enough. They feel maybe they can't be good. Yeah.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Well, honestly, I think part of it is the whole down with the man hippie culture of the age group that you sort of came up with to a certain extent. Particularly here in California. This week, I've had many interviews where their success is so very obvious, but getting them to admit it, it's like pulling teeth. I'll work with them for 10 minutes in the interview. And it's like, why was it so fucking hard to just celebrate your own successes for a second? Admit it.
I'm really surprised to hear that.
Are you? Well, you can watch the interviews.
Well, I mean, I've covered up my self-doubts by saying that, well, I just have so much to feel humble about. Which sounds better,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I think that we appreciate modesty as a virtue. We don't like arrogance.
No,
And
we
so,
don't.
we're there's this sort of built-in sort of default to modesty over arrogance and pride,
Yeah.
right? And but there is also a sort of, let me see if I can get this around. So a very accomplished, very intelligent person whom I know, well known within our industry, told me, said, "No, I'm a piece of shit." I said, "No, you are not." He goes, "Yes, I am." And lots of people I know tell themselves and think themselves, "I'm a piece of shit." And I said, "Listen, false modesty is bad, but false, like whatever the fuck that is just as bad."
Well, this culture is all about competitiveness.
Hmm.
And if you can't feel you've outcompeted everybody,
Hmm.
you fall prey to that.
Yeah, I think they use this as a mechanism to, say, don't get too full of yourself. And, and we can appreciate that to a certain extent. At least this person was. I don't mean the whole culture. These days, we're caught up in this really fascinating battle of the most pitiful. Like somehow, culturally speaking, we're in this scenario where on our university campuses and such, your greatest superpower is your, what do we call that? I've been disabled because of this. Everyone has a label these days. I suffer from this, I suffer from that, and it's almost like a competition somehow. It's like, oh, you can't complain
Yes,
because
it's
I have this
competitive.
thing.
Yes.
It's competitive. It's a really weird way to be competitive because you're competing on who has the biggest sob story somehow. And I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but I just don't know how to communicate otherwise.
There's also the factor that in this culture, hand skills are really not valued.
Hmm.
And all of us have hand skills.
Hmm.
But you've never heard a single news program, newspaper article, headline where hand skills are celebrated.
Hmm.
You just haven't.
Hmm.
I haven't.
You know, I remember a moment.
Political victories, economic victories,
Mhm.
monetary victories, scientific victories. Yeah. Manual victories, not so much.
You talk about the cultural difference that way. I remember I had a moment where we were renting a house in the Toronto area and we had Chinese landlords. I've never bought a house in my whole life. I've grew up sort of rootless. I don't like the idea of being bound. And
Well, you
so,
bought the house in Italy.
no, 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 that's a lease.
Oh,
They sign long-term leases there. It's a 7-year lease, but it's a lease.
okay.
And so I don't own a house, and I'm not really very interested in that sort of idea. I think it's, well, we're getting too much into that. Um, People talk about the money they made on their homes, but you have to sell it to move somewhere else. And most of them, I hear far too often people can't do something because they're renovating their kitchen or they have to put a new roof on or something of the sort like that. I'm like, that's not something I'm interested in. However,
Right.
how did I end up there? Um, oh, jeez. Now it's my turn. How did I lose my train of thought there? What were we talking about?
Talking about culture and how certain things
Ah,
are.
I was renting a house north of Toronto, and I had Chinese landlords.
Yeah,
They were Chinese immigrants. They did well. She was a doctor. He's an engineer. They did well, and they bought property in the Toronto area.
that's right.
We were renting a house, and honestly, we weren't renting a crappy apartment. It was an executive house. It's a 4,000 square foot large house.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I always got the feeling they kind of looked down on us because we were renters, even though we paid them a lot of money every month.
Yeah.
That there was always this division. They were the landlords, you were the tenants somehow.
Yes, that's right.
And there was a period in our life where, oh no, confession. There's a period in our life where we made guitars, and we made guitars in the home, and there were guitars hanging up on the wall, and we had to work with them to say it was okay to have a workshop on the property.
Yeah.
And they came in and they said, "These are you make guitars. You're artisans." Yes, everything changed. Everything changed.
Wow.
They showed this reverence, this respect for us. When they thought I was a business person, renting. They looked down on us.
right.
When they found out we could create guitars with our hands, they gave this completely different level of respect to
Wow.
us.
That's really interesting.
And I made the assumption that came from their Chinese culture.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would have to.
And so one of the things that I found in that time when we were making guitars is I live a lot in my head. A lot of my work is advice, solving problems. And when we started making things by hand, which was to solve a problem, by the way, we were transitioning from the distribution of guitars and thought, I don't want to lose a product line to a bigger company again.
Yeah,
We're gonna
right.
figure out how to make these on our own. And we were making the prototypes really to be produced then at that point. It brought a fullness to my life I did not expect.
How about
I
that?
did not expect getting in there, and I love carving braces. This is, matter of fact, I went to take a call, and Roberta was in motion, and she went from carving a top of her own, and then she finished it, and she went and carved my braces. And I came downstairs, I was like crushed, like, I was so looking forward to that. You carved my braces? She's like, oh, I thought I was doing a good job. Oh, okay, thanks, honey. You know,
I'm going to get up and get something. Can I do that?
oh, sure, why not?
I'll be back in 12 seconds.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. Going to get something.
I just got these in the mail.
Yes.
It's a book just published in China.
Oh.
No, Japan.
Japan.
Excuse me.
It looked Japanese to me.
Yeah.
I can't read it though, but it looks Japanese.
It's about me and my work.
Ah.
So if you want, you could keep that, or if you don't, you can leave it here.
Oh,
But it's a really, really cool book about me and my work.
that's really wonderful, and I'd be honored. Thank you very much.
I mean, speaking of being known in other places and different cultures.
Yeah. I'd be really curious to know how they treat this.
How they what?
How they would write about it, how they would write about you, and what language they would use. I mean, besides the Japanese language, but you know what I mean? What words they would use, what parts of the story are important to them that would be different than the parts of the story that might be important to us.
Well, I wrote this in English. It got translated.
Yes.
So I think it's got to be a pretty good translation.
Oh, so you wrote the story and
Yes.
they're translating it.
Yes.
Ah, okay. Great. Is
But-
this your autobiography?
No. Years ago, I wrote a series of 84 articles for this Japanese guitar magazine.
Mm-hmm.
These are some of the reprints.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great.
But as they say back east, it couldn't hurt to have a book like that out. But it's a pretty book.
It is a pretty book. Wonderful.
It's very attractive.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That will be in an honored place. I feel weird about not having an honored place to put it down right now.
Well,
that will do.
I'm sure you'll never
That'll
read
be
it
all right.
too, but it's okay.
I'll share it with Japanese friends and ask them to read to me.
It could put you to sleep.
Oh, yeah. Another bit of false modesty, perhaps. Come on. Are some of your excellent jokes in there?
No, that's just straight Luthiery.
Straight Luthiery.
See, I don't understand Japanese humor. I've tried to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand Russian humor or Chinese humor.
Mm-hmm.
But I like humor. I like to see how it kind of works.
Mm.
And the things that drive or the well springs of it are, it's like wanting to Hungarianize something rather than explaining it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's such different mindsets involved that I'm always suspicious that when I talk to somebody, even through translation, that I'm not quite getting what they said and vice versa,
Yeah.
because the languages are different mindsets.
Yes. So that was actually one of the things that fueled the earlier parts of my business.
What?
And although it was all in English, I was a cultural translator in the guitar industry because my early work
Well, of course.
involved, as a Canadian, I found myself somehow advantageously placed between European culture and American culture, being able to communicate European interests and needs to Americans and vice versa.
It's
And
so good that you understood that.
well, it took me a while to figure out. At first, it was just, I'm really interested in these European
Yeah,
guitars.
yeah.
But ultimately, I realized through a series of course, mistakes and trying to sort them out, things, simple things, well, seemingly simple things like an American retailer would come to a European guitar maker at a NAMM show and ask I like the guitars, what's the profit margin? He'd be like, oh, you know, that's not enough. And the European were like, what do you mean? I can't give you more than that. And they were like, oh, okay, well, I like your guitars, but we can't do any business. And what I ultimately realized once you said, well, what exactly, how do you do this? Tell me about this. Why isn't this working?
Yeah.
It can't be that you just make completely different kinds of money on instruments in these two different parts of the world. And what we realize is when you talk about profit margins, that Americans always communicate the street selling price to the buying price for the
Uh-huh.
retailer, which is let's call it a 30% profit margin.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But the European always talks about it at the price they buy it and then to what they sell it for. The
Oh,
difference
interesting.
can be to get the same numbers when you go from buying it for $50 and selling it for 100 is a 50% profit margin.
Yeah.
Right? Or, but taking it the other direction, it's 100%.
Oh.
Right? So when you're talking about, oh, it's a 30% margin, the European would go, well, I can't buy it for 1,000 and sell it for 1,300. But that's not what they mean. It's the other direction around. And so, yeah. And so I had to figure out these things and say, well, who am I communicating to? Who's asking the question? If a European's asking the question, I have to look from the net price and work up. If Americans asking the question, I have to go from the selling price and work backwards. It turns out that you guys were within 2 or 3%, which is negotiable.
Yeah. Right.
Not off by 20%, which you think is an impasse.
Well,
as a guitar builder and a player, you have a sense for when something's working right. That's why so many of the world's best trust D'Addario. Unmatched tone, perfect intonation, and strings made to the tightest tolerances in the industry. That reputation is no accident. It's the result of 400 years of being obsessed with quality and innovation. D'Addario. When you know, you know.
Don't mind another etymological thing here. Yeah. In this culture, we express our primary relationship with money in terms of making it.
Yes.
I make $50,000 a year.
Okay.
But you don't actually make it. We can make a guitar, but we don't make money. It's just how we express that. It's sort of a metaphor. We earn it, but the only part of the culture that speaks of earning money in this culture is the financial part of it. But they don't earn jack shit. They switch money around. That's not really productive. Not really, in my sense of the word. They shuttle money around and do paperwork, but they don't produce anything. Other people produce things. Yeah. So I don't see how they earn anything. However, the same thing is expressed differently in different cultures. Yeah. In Russian, you'd say "Я получаю," which means I receive. I receive $50,000 a year. And in Spanish, you'd say "Me lo gano." I win it, like in a lottery or a game. In Hungarian, you'd say "Keresem," which means I look for it, I hunt for it, I seek it. But the German is the best. Ich verdiene. I deserve. Ich verdiene $50,000 a year.
Yes.
Now that's, talk about arrogant. That's really kind of amazing how they express that.
Yeah, I really love German to English translation. My career started primarily with German guitar makers, and so I spent a lot of time in Germany.
You were, tell me about that.
Oh, well, I mean, this part of the career, let's say, um, I I ended up with a retail store unexpectedly because the owner was suffering from mania and they needed a solution. And so they made a crazy deal to a young guy who had no money,
You?
me, and said, we need to get out of this lease because the lease is killing us. And dad keeps on making these crazy decisions because he's literally crazy at this point in time. Um, and he's digging big financial holes. So they said, if you can convince the landlord to sign over the lease to you and pay them first and last month's rent, we'll sell you the name of the store for $1 and leave all the inventory on consignment. So I borrowed $3,000 from friends and family to pay first and last month's rent, signed it over, and next thing you know, we owned a guitar store.
Where? Where is this?
In the Toronto area, in a suburb of Toronto. It's called Oakville, but it was a suburb of Toronto. And a very wealthy neighborhood where the executives from Toronto lived. And so it was a good place to grow a business. But because I wasn't suffering from mania, I sold things much faster when I was young and full of energy. He was 77, I was 25, right?
Yeah.
Different workflow. And so I very quickly sold things and couldn't get them in fast enough. And I was locked in by what we used to call brick and mortar stores, where they had the rights to this line and that line you couldn't
Oh,
get.
yeah, yeah.
And so I had to go looking for things that no one else had. So I did. I went to the NAMM show, and I found a guy by the name of Nick Huber, who's now a famous guitar maker, but Nick sold his first guitar in North America to me.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, are there more people like you? He said, well, there's a show in Germany that happens, the Music Messe, in March or April. And so I went there, and that's where I met Jens Ritter and Rana Tausch, Johann Kangas, Claudio Pagelli. And I realized there's all sorts of amazing European instruments of very high quality, higher quality than what I was seeing in the US, frankly, at that point in time. I think there's something I can do here. And so I brought them in at first as a retailer. But then eventually I expanded into sales and distribution to other music stores. And those guys all asked me to take their guitars on the road with them and sell them for them. And so that's how I ended up being. It was first Nick, and then I went to Germany, and I met a bunch of other Germans or German speakers anyways. The Pagellis are Swiss-Italian, but they speak German.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was my beginning. And then helping them navigate what things are different in North America. Because when you sell in Europe, you have to guarantee that guitar, like I think you have to be able to take it back within 60 days or something. It's like it's legalized as to how long you have to give them credit for, the amount of vacations they have. The Americans are like, what do you mean they're closed again? They were closed 3 weeks ago. There's a lot of vacations in Europe. And so, and Americans expect responses like, now, why aren't you up working? Right. And the Europeans don't understand why they're upset.
No, they don't.
We were off. What do you mean? It was a holiday. We were with our families. Weren't you with your family? So a lot of that was me as a Canadian growing up in the most multicultural city in the world. I don't speak languages, but I speak accents and I speak culture.
Okay.
Nobody sounds weird to me. Every accent in the world sounds understandable to me when they're speaking English. And I have a lot of people who they can't understand, like, it's just an accent. They don't know what they're talking about. Anyways, long story long, that's why a lot of my career started with Germans and why I've spent so much time in Germany and speaking to Germans.
So you speak some German?
I can order a restaurant. I know little phrases. I know how to say good night and I'll see you tomorrow and the things that you just pick up, but I've never made an intention to speak the language. So
I have had a really interesting experience among the Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling guitars to a middleman some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'd make them, sell them to this middleman.
Mm-hmm.
The middleman sold them to a store.
Mm-hmm.
The store sold them to a client.
Yes.
So by the time the guitar had made that round, the price was pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
And in Japan, there's certain expectations of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
inexpensive things.
Mm-hmm.
So I sold his guitar to the middleman. He sold it to a store. The store sold it to a customer. And a few days after that sale was made, the customer called the store up.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked to the manager, and he says, "Hi, it's me. Yes, how are you? So pleasant to have another chat with you." "Well, yes, thank you, but I must tell you, I'm dissatisfied with this guitar that I bought."
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, dear. What's the problem?" "Well, there are scratches in the finish, and I must say I'm very unhappy about that."
Mm-hmm.
And this manager, being a good manager,
Mm-hmm.
made all the right sounds and noises.
Mm-hmm.
Says, "Well, I'm terribly sorry. I do apologize. Please bring the guitar back to us. We'll rectify the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring it in. Let me take a look at it."
Mm-hmm.
So the guy brings the guitar in and puts the case up on the counter, opens the case up, and takes the guitar out and shows it to the manager. And the manager looks it over and he says, "You know, I'm unable to see any scratches on this." And the guy said, "Well, of course not. You have to look for them with this magnifying glass." I mean, holy shit.
Yeah.
He really looked at it.
Yes.
And they're like that. And you have to know that. Also in Japan, if you promise something, you got to do it. You can't change the terms.
Right.
They'll never talk to you again if you do something like that.
Yeah. So I spent a number of years helping an Australian acoustic guitar company establish themselves in North America. And what the standard is for an acoustic guitar and production, the way that Australians look at the guitar is different than the way the Americans do.
Uh-huh.
And so I spent years traveling to all of the top acoustic guitar shops in the USA with this Australian guitars. And when you bring that guitar into a high-end acoustic guitar shop, and when I say high-end, I mean, I tried to triangulate all of the quality guitars. So I made a spreadsheet with Martin, Taylor, Collins, Bourgeois, Hudson Dalton, whatever those brands were, Santa Cruz. And if two or more showed up in the spreadsheet, that was a spot for me to say, these people are serious about acoustic guitar. They don't have the one.
Yeah.
Right. So just to qualify what we're talking about when I say high-end acoustic guitar shop, you would go in there, and before they would play a note on the guitar, when we had a conversation, they would take it to the bench, pull out a dental mirror and a light.
Which would tell them what?
They're looking for anything that repair guy could criticize. They're looking for sloppy glue. They're looking for sawdust. They're looking for
on the inside
of the guitar. And when I told the folks in Australia that they have to improve the quality of the inside of the guitar, they're like, "What the fuck are they looking in there for? Play the guitar."
that makes a certain kind of sense.
Well, but I said, "Do you want to sell guitars? Because if you want to sell guitars in this country, we're going to have to do something about this." And so I went to Melbourne, Australia after I'd been doing this a little while for them, and all of their sort of warehouse of guitars that were sort of available and ready to go, because they made thousands of guitars.
Yeah.
There were signs on some of the guitars, and they didn't allocate anywhere specific. They said one thing. They said, "Not for USA. Not for USA."
Really?
Not for USA. Because they knew that when I got them, I'd do the quality control on them, and I'd say, "This one isn't good enough." And I'd
That's
send it back.
really interesting.
But they could sell them all day long in Australia, not because they're idiots, just because they have a different value set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they don't have to be idiots. They
Yeah.
just have to look at things. It depends on how it look you at.
Right. Yes. But I've also taken orders from Japanese clients that would send pictures. We would like it with a maple top like this, and then another one not like this, crossed out. We would like it the blue like this, but not like this, crossed out. And then the email would always very respectfully say that, "Please take your time. Do not rush the master. We're happy to receive it when it's ready, but we want to receive it like this," basically.
That's very firm and respectful.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. So, but you learn very quickly, or well, you'll eventually learn what is important to your different clients,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then having to navigate it. And you've been doing that for quite a few years. Yeah, almost 60 years of guitar making at this point.
54,
54. Yeah.
but who's counting?
Yeah. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's been a long run.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And you have been curious, and you have been meticulous. You have asked questions. You have pushed limits. Uh, this is, but you've earned a reputation of quality. There are terms that we use in the industry at this point in time, at least in the boutique side of the industry. Things like the sensitive guitar, things like modified dreadnought,
Mm.
and such, which clearly come from you
Yeah.
at this stage. Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com.
Well, I might add.
Yeah. Did I forget something?
No, not at all. In matters of culture,
Yeah.
because this all falls under that category.
Yeah.
In my experience, the average guitar maker in this culture would arrive at some measurement or series of measurements or factors or quantities that were the right ones, quote unquote. And they would execute work to those standards and measurements and everything else, but not anything else. And me, I found it easy to think, this guitar sounded pretty good. How about if I make the next one have a top 10% thinner? And that gives you some kind of frame of reference for comparing. And I found that to be a very useful thing to bring into the work. And other people don't recognize that element of thinking.
You were just 10% thinner, not to achieve a particular objective, but just to sort of say what would happen if?
One of the principles of my book on guitar architecture
Yes.
is what I call the cube rule,
Okay.
which is a principle every engineer and a lot of physicists know. No guitar maker has ever been introduced to this. The cube rule is that the stiffness, the load-bearing capacity of a load-bearing element is a cube function of its height and a linear function of its width. And it's an inverse cube function of how long it is, which means if it's shorter, it's a lot stiffer. By this this geometric factor of being a cube. If you make something like a guitar top 10% thinner, which on most guitar tops is like, that much wood. It's 1/3 looser. Now that's phenomenal. If you go to a store and ask for a 10% discount, sure, no big deal. Ask them for a 30% discount, they'll laugh at you. But a tiny amount of something makes a really big difference in terms of the actual physical workings of a construct. So you don't have to take off a half. If you take off half, you reduce the stiffness of whatever it is to 12.5% of what it used to be. I mean, that's insane. But if you just know the cube rule, you'll know that you don't have to take off a lot for it to make a considerable difference. just because of the physics and engineering involved.
Yes.
So you don't have to make huge changes right off the bat,
Yeah.
but a series of systematically different ones
Yes.
is useful.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I was taught that when carving braces by the guy who taught me to carve braces, Tony
Yes.
Carroll, but he is an engineer by trade who then went into guitar making
Yeah.
when his company was
Then
bought
he'd
out.
know about that.
So
Yeah.
he'd know from his engineering trade, not from being a guitar maker in those conversations, I bet you. Yeah. Yes. So these acoustic systems for me, this has been something that I've been interested in for quite a while, because as I meet guitar makers around the world, everyone explains things a little differently. And
Yes.
sometimes I'll have a conversation with someone, and the next morning I'll go for breakfast with a different guitar maker, and I'll say, so-and-so said this to me yesterday. And they'll go, oh, I love them. That's not how it works. And then, then they'll explain what they think of it.
Yeah.
There is not a consensus amongst the majority of guitar makers anyways, I would say. And there also seems to be, for whatever reason, a fair amount of, there's lots of sharing within the community, but there's a certain amount of, I'm keeping this part to myself.
Yes.
And because I'm not a threat to those people, I don't think, often they share with me their thoughts on it. And I've noticed that, listen, they make good guitars, and therefore they have a working knowledge of what they're doing. But the story doesn't necessarily line up with other stories. The verbiage doesn't line up necessarily. The set of terms don't line up for the same phenomena. And so I went down the path of trying to understand, not for making guitars, but because part of my role is that because I'm identified with specifically unique world-class instruments that are contributing something to the conversation of the guitar, a very discriminating description, a very small niche, everyone brings me the weird shit. Like everyone, that's a weird way to say it, but they bring me the thing that says this does this thing that no one else is doing.
Right.
And I have to then possibly accept their story and then carry the message to someone else. And I don't want to be an idiot. I don't want to be a fool. And I want to be right about it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to buy into this, I need to understand it. And so it means that I have to think about and judge a lot of things that most people in the guitar maybe never get asked.
Correct.
Or asked to put their name behind in some way. And so I now have to translate these stories and these narratives into a story that works within my own mind to be able to understand these systems.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And so I went through a series where I tried to understand in the simplest form. So you talked about the sort of basic sort of principles. And I've recently learned that there are people who call this sort of thinking first principles thinking. And so I've been making an effort to do so. I've always used Brancusi's ideas about saying that, simplicity is complexity resolved.
I like that.
Yeah, that's great. I fell in love with his thinking before his artwork.
I like that.
Yeah, simplicity is complexity resolved. And so I try and take these complex situations and make them as simple as I possibly can to be able to understand it. And then I can overlay it in different concepts.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. And so I went down this pathway to try and understand sound in the simplest of possible. I got down to 3 words.
Well, that's another area of difficulty.
Yeah.
There's no agreed on language for steel string guitar makers to talk about sound with.
Yeah.
And when I teach my guitar classes, we spend one day learning how to listen, which is not part of anybody else's curriculum. But it's important to know what to listen for and to notice if there's more of it or less of it or, any of that kind of thing.
So how do you explain it? What is the simplest version of your understanding of sound and...
Of sound?
Yeah, sound and then the acoustic system of a guitar.
You could keep me talking for a long time about that.
I said the simplest version.
Uh,
But maybe you don't choose to think in that way.
well, no,
I
no.
try and get it very simple.
My simplicity would, I think, translate to everybody else's complexity. And there are a lot of factors in things to juggle around when you're making a guitar if you have a certain endpoint in mind, a certain goal in mind. For instance, with the cube rule thing, the stiffness of a load-bearing material is a cube function of its height or thickness and an inverse cube function of its length.
Yes.
So if it's longer, it's looser. If it's shorter, it's stiffer. So if you decide to make your tops 109 thousandths of an inch, because that really works on your dreadnoughts, but you can't use the same thickness on an OM because it's a smaller plate. Shorter is stiffer. So you're not talking about something that's the same you can do the same thing with. Because on the one hand, you're loosening. On the other hand, you're stiffening. And it helps a lot if you know that kind of thing.
Yes.
So you want to know about my concept of sound?
Yeah. Maybe the first question is, do you have a simplified concept of sound that you use? Or is it more a series of what you just talked about? It's perhaps an encyclopedia of equations like you just spoke.
Well, the encyclopedia translates into certain identifiable things. For instance, you can have a guitar that is loud. You can easily tell that a guitar is loud compared to one that's not so loud. But in that, you might find that one of them has a more even range of response up and down the neck, or this one is maybe bass heavy or treble heavy or got dead spots or something. And you can make a guitar that is, aside from other qualities, that is a projector. You can hear it way over there. You can make a guitar that's a diffuser. You can't hear it over there, but over here it sounds really good. So there's these categories of things that you have to juggle around that wind up in the aggregate making a certain kind of sound that might be the kind of sound that you really want. So in my approach to guitar making, I ask people as much as I can, what do they want? What do they play? What do they like? How do they play? Can you show me how you hold the neck? Because that includes the contouring of the back of the neck, because that's what they're holding. So for me, it's not so simple as one unit, but it's simple as a number of things that are in different categories that fit together very well or not, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. I agree. This space is normally reserved for brands who make stories like this possible, like the Dario and the Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop. If your company belongs in this conversation, let's talk. We partner with brands who value craft, culture, and the quiet power of a well-placed idea. I agree. So,
and on top of that is a progression of, the top and the back are your vibrating. What's that?
A horn outside.
Oh,
timed with the movement of your arm.
I thought it might have been my phone.
No.
But,
does your phone make that noise?
Pardon?
Does your phone make that noise?
No, but I just turned it off, so
Okay.
maybe it does. The progression of a guitar sound can be observed by lightening the structure. Because the plates that are doing all the stimulating of the air need to work in tandem with the pull of the strings, the pull and the torque, and there's a balancing act there. So if the top and the back are too stiff, they won't give you as full a response as if they were more yielding. So you can approach the optimal point a little bit at a time, and you can hear the guitar sounding better and better and more interesting and warmer or colder or bright or whatever. But then after a certain point, the sound deteriorates. You've gone too far. That's a really important point to know. What's the optimal point that you can work this down to with these strings, with this scale length, that you will sort of mess up if you go a little bit farther. So there's a lot of, I guess, calculating, I'd call it.
Yeah.
Or it's like cooking. Some of this much spice and some of that much ingredient cooked for this amount of time will make a really great meal, or one that's pretty good, you know. So my answer to your question is probably not as simple as one would have thought I could make it, but the reality, the simplest reality is that there are different things to consider.
This space is normally reserved for brands who make stories like this possible, like the Dario and the Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop. If your company belongs in this conversation, let's talk. We partner with brands who value craft, culture, and the quiet power of a well-placed idea. Yeah, no, of course they are, and things get very complex on the detail. I find that every time I ask a guitar maker a question like this, maybe the nature of guitar making and people who make guitars is to go into the detail, because it always gets heavy into the detail right away with systems. And I'm talking about it on a more sort of higher theoretical sort of level without getting so caught up in this very specific details of it. So maybe I can explain to you a little bit about the observations, and then you can tell me what you think of that, and maybe you can tell me whether it falls into your ideas, or you can shoot some holes in it, and we can just sort of learn together a little bit, if that's useful to you. Would you like to do that? Yeah, okay. So as I got it down to 3 words. The words are movement, which is interchangeable with energy. Energy and movement are the same thing in the physics sense, but for the purpose of building an acoustic guitar, movement is more useful as a term, okay? So movement with time, because that's how we measure the movements. That's the frequency. It's how we communicate the sound, right? But then the third one was interesting. It really blew my mind open, because the third part is perception. Because actually there is no sound without our auditory system.
Okay.
It's just movement and time. And light is communicated as movement and time also. And once I realized that light and sound are the same thing, except one is observed by the eye and one is observed by the ear, then I thought, are all 5 senses that way? Smell, taste, touch? Okay, touch is. Smell, yeah, we take the cheese out of the fridge. When it warms up, it's moving faster. Therefore, more of it is passing over our senses at any given point in time. It becomes more pungent to us. And when we cool it down, we slow it down, and there's less moving over any time. The difference is time. We've either inserted or removed time from the system of our perception.
Yeah, good.
And so, all right. So once we understand that we have movement and time and perception, then I began to think about the system and the way it works. And I began to understand that really what we're talking about is the guiding of the movement and time through the system, through a series of obstacles and affordances. We move it into the parts of the system which we wish. We keep it there longer through an obstacle. We move it through the system by an affordance. And so this is some of the language that was confusing for me when I heard people talk about things like, oh, rosewood has more bass response. Mahogany doesn't have as much bass response. Because you tap on a piece of rosewood, it has a higher tap tone, and mahogany is a lower tap tone. And actually what's happening is that the rosewood is a greater obstacle, and therefore the same given amount of energy going to the spruce causes the spruce to travel a greater distance because it doesn't leave the spruce as fast as it does. Mahogany is a better conduit, and it goes into mahogany faster. And it's an affordance. If we go from rosewood to mahogany, it's an affordance. If we go from mahogany to rosewood, it's an obstacle. And
Yeah, right.
the amplitude of the top changes based on the resistance of how quickly the energy moves out of the top. So with the bridge admittance. And so this is what's happening when we're constructing sides and we're increasing the stiffness in sides, is we're actually creating an obstacle so that the top can move a greater distance. And now, so we're guiding energy through a series of obstacles and affordances. And I think about it, what I think this instrument doesn't have as much low frequency as I'd like. Now a first principles approach says, what I need to do is insert time into the system. I need to slow it down, because slowing it down is less frequent, low frequency.
Yeah.
And so I can do that now that I understand it in the first principle. I can close up the aperture, making a smaller sound hole, therefore making it less efficient for the air to leave the chamber inside. That will create a lower frequency. You open up the aperture and the pitch goes up. The length of the grain you already talked about. It's what we see in marimba bars or church organ pipes, right? We have
absolutely
the shorter grain, the same amount of given, will have lesser amplitude, but the same amount of thickness over a longer period will have more flex in the center. We'll get a greater amplitude, therefore a lower frequency.
Yes.
Or a higher frequency by shortening it up. And so you begin to understand the possibilities to say, when I need this or that, there isn't one answer. There's a multitude of answers of how you could achieve that.
You're quite right.
Yeah. And so I've explained this now to the aerospace engineer of Lamborghini, to acousticians in architecture, and I've tried to get them to shoot a hole in it, to shoot it down. And so far, everyone has told me that's a very useful way of looking at things. I wasn't taught that way, but I can see how that would be useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm curious to know, do you see, I actually want to know if I'm wrong. I don't just want people telling me you're right. Like, do you see a problem with that way of thinking, or do you have something to add to that?
Well, I do have something to add to it. I'm not sure how the word problem would fit in there, but in my years as a repairman, I would occasionally get a call from somebody saying, hey, I've had this guitar for 3 years. It's been fine, but it's not playing in tune anymore. I think the tuners are slipping. Can I get new tuners put on there? I said, sure, bring the guitar on over. So they bring the guitar on over, and I'd look at it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Nothing was loose, nothing was worn, nothing was slipping, nothing was damaged. Their ear had gotten better over time, so now they could hear it didn't play in tune, and it never had.
Right.
But now they could be aware of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's that learning curve for all these things.
Yeah.
I was really surprised the first time I came across that there's nothing wrong with the guitar, but it didn't play in tune.
Yeah.
But nothing had changed on it.
So
I thought, oh, the one thing is how long you've been listening to it. And your ear is now better. And it's amazing to me that you could play a guitar and not notice it doesn't play in tune.
That doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. But those who it does come naturally to have how can you comprehend it? How can you not know what you don't know? Like,
I mean, it helped that I played guitar, so I was used to listening to the sound, but still, it's kind of surprising.
I came to the same conclusion when I was selling guitars, when I had a retail store, that I realized that when I brought in guitars that outperformed other guitars, a person's ability to experience that was limited by their ability to come up against those limits, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so you might be very happy with this guitar your entire life. I don't know. But there are people who eventually come up against the limitations who are saying, I need a little this or that out of it. And if that person hasn't come to that point, it's their competence and experience then meeting with the tool And if you don't know how to wield the tool, you'll never know that it does that, or you'll never miss it in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Food is another one. There are people who are really sensitive to food, who really enjoy different foods, and there's others who they're happy to eat at the gas station.
Yeah, they couldn't tell the difference if you added a pound of salt to it.
Yeah.
You know.
And God bless them. I mean, that must be a nice life somehow. They must be much more contented than I am.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so, well, to wrap up that part of it, Ervin, I did make an effort to try and talk about this so that I could provide, maybe bring people towards a common set of understandings or knowledge on things.
So
Because
you're talking
that
about
common lexicon is an issue in how we communicate with and talk about the acoustic system and sound.
very much so.
Yeah.
But you're telling me you talk to the people whose guitars you represent about these things?
Oh, I talk to all sorts of people about this stuff. Yeah.
Oh. And do they listen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had guitar makers get up from this meeting and go, oh, I want to show you something I've been working on. And they go into the other room and say, if what you're telling me is right, then this is, I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, okay. I mean,
that's nice. I didn't know that, but yeah.
We share information. This is why I don't really do interviews. We do conversations. You know, when I get together with people, I like to, yeah, we're all in this together. And I love to learn from people. But sharing ideas is partly how we learn, right? It said, oh, that's interesting, Jamie. I think that you've got it a little off here. Have you ever considered this? One of my theories that I was working on, I spoke with an anthropologist at Yale University about it, and she didn't like the terms I was using.
She didn't like the terms.
No, the word I'd used. And then I thought about it and thought, oh, well, what other term can I use to describe the same phenomena?
Yeah.
She said, I understand what you're saying. I don't like the term. I noticed movements in guitar and culturally, first of all, from guitar, that we sort of move through periods where we seek perfection, and then eventually it's too perfect and we think it's inhuman, and then we reject it and we look for intentionally flawed things. So this happened where the hippie movement was a rejection of sort of perfect pop music. The punk movement was a rejection again. The grunge movement was another rejection again, where all of a sudden we want things that feel more everyday, right? And then banjos show up in music again. People sing out of tune and it's all okay, right? And so I noticed this through my own experience in guitar and with how I came up to guitar, seeking perfection of playing. And then Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all these folks came out and I was like, what the hell is going on? These guys, they're not in tune. The guitar solo sucks. I don't understand. People hate me for saying that now, but that's how I felt because I had been listening to people like Steve Vai or, you know, who were virtuosic in what they were doing, but they got so virtuosic that people were like, I'm a little bored of this. I want something that sounds human again. And so I observed this and then understood cultural differences and political differences between these things and said, we have a perfection versus rejection. And I said, basically the perfection is seeking a bold new future. And I made a political reference and said, this is like the Obama Hope campaign. And then the golden years impulse, the rejection is to say, you know, no, let's go back to the way we were. Let's make America great again. The American presidents flip on this constantly. So one of them says a bold new future. The other one says, no, let's put prayer back in school. You know, the other one says this, the other one says, let's make it great again, blah, blah, blah. Back and forth, back and forth. Hegel observed this. And so when we look at these and we make these observations, I was calling it perfection and rejection. She was like, Jamie, I see what you're saying. You've made a strong case for it. I believe you. I'm concerned about you referring to one as perfection and one as rejection in the political context. And she was American.
Yes,
Canadian,
that's right. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I had not seen that.
Because those are rigid categories.
Yes. So then I began to communicate it as futurist and golden years from that point on. But when we talk about it in the liberal context, in the political context, I now refer to it as liberal and conservative. And so the conservative impulse is to, well, literally conserve, but we have a problem of stagnation. The liberal impulse is to liberate, obviously, right? If we look at it on a higher order of things, then what we have is we have order, known, what has been, what is, and we have if we liberate and liberate and liberate, we move towards chaos, total chaos.
Mm-hmm.
No order. That's the opposite. The tangents. This is the yin and the yang, right? And so the political function in a democracy is a necessary. You can't have a democracy without the official opposition. And so the liberal function is to pull the conservatives and get them to release some things and pull them into the future. The conservative function is not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which the liberals might done.
Yeah.
Hegel observed this as a thesis generating its own antithesis, which generates a synthesis. And that pulls us into forward momentum. Anyways, long story long, that's when terms need to be changed because I'm communicating one thing and she says, alarm bells, don't say that in terms of politics. And now I have to find a term which is suitable for that, which is to conserve and to liberate.
That's really interesting. I didn't know about Hegel.
Oh, you would love Hegel.
Pardon?
You would love Hegel.
Okay. Another way to say what I think I just heard you say, seen from this other perspective, is with the advent of science and scientific methodology in the West, came a phenomenon of more full, more complex components of explanations for phenomena. The scientists, they're still doing this. They're discovering a new thing about this or that all the time.
Yes.
Well, that gets unwieldy for the brain to deal with. So somebody came up with this.
As a guitar builder and a player, you have a sense for when something's working right. That's why so many of the world's best trust D'Addario. Unmatched tone, perfect intonation, and strings made to the tightest tolerances in the industry. That reputation is no accident. It's the result of 400 years of being obsessed with quality and innovation. D'Addario, when you know, you know.
Thing called complexity theory.
Okay.
Which recognizes that, the more educated we get, the more scientific blah, blah, blah we have, this, that, and the other, the more things there are for us to think about with regard to anything, and that just gets to be an overwhelming burden because it's getting more and more complicated. But complexity theory postulates that, well, yes, there's enormous potential and actual complication in anything, but most of those things aren't that important. Some of them are. And that fits into complexity theory. And I think it fits into what we're talking, that there's all these things to think about. And a lot of them, if you look at them from a certain point of view, they say, well, yeah, I can agree with that, but it's not that important. This other thing really is. I hope that makes some kind of sense.
Well, yes, you have to determine what is worth putting your effort into. But I think our brains naturally do this where they arrive at the sufficiently useful low resolution version to communicate things. And so we do this by narrative terms like the hero. And so we can say something like, they were the Einstein of, they were the Michael Jordan of.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right? And that is supposed to, by invoking the hero of of Einstein, we get it. Oh, they were very, very smart. they were very intelligent.
Right,
they were revolutionary in their field. Oh, they were the best at that sport at the time, right? And so you're communicating a language. Say, if you're talking to a sport person, you can say they were an Einstein of, they were a Babe Ruth of, whatever it happened to be, and that helps us communicate the more complex story in a simple form. I don't think that's exactly what you're talking about, but I think that's how our brain does it and how most people get through the day without being overwhelmed by all the complexity of things. So I understand in science that there is a phenomena that helps us understand that we see the whole world in narrative. So, and this happened because of the observation of a particular mental condition where people lost the ability to restrain themselves from their impulses. And so when they encountered a door, they always opened it and walked through it every time. They could not walk past a door. The psychologists extrapolate from this that door is not the handle, the portal, the plank. Door is space in which you pass through. Is how our mind
I
must
can
see
see
it.
that.
Yeah. And so there's a narrative with every object that we have, eventually, once we understand them anyways. And our brain simplifies us just by giving us the lowest resolution that's useful to it.
At this point, this is really interesting. My brain is filling up. So I feel like I'd like to tell you a joke.
Great, please do. I hope it's a good one, Ervin.
It's such a complicated question. Oh my God. Okay. Cletus is walking past Billy Bob's barn one morning.
Mm-hmm.
Stop me if you've heard this one. Cletus is walking past his friend Billy Bob's barn one morning. The barn door is a little ajar, and he looks in, and he sees a very strange sight. There, in the middle of the barn, in front of his John Deere tractor, is his friend Billy Bob, who is sort of doing this belly dance type thing. He's just swaying and sashaying.
Yes.
And he's wearing these overalls, and he sort of turns to the tractor and smiles at it and lets the right strap slowly roll down his right shoulder. And he continues to oscillate. He lets the left strap slowly roll down, seductively roll down his left shoulder. And Billy Bob sort of shakes his body, and the overalls fall down around his ankles, and he steps out of them, continuing to vibrate and oscillate. And he's now dressed in this ratty old plaid shirt and skivvies, and he's doing this exotic dance. And then in a dramatic gesture, he rips his shirt off and flings it to the ground, and he continues to oscillate and vibrate and turn around and smile and giggle and shake his shoulders. And now he's dressed in this dirty old T-shirt and skivvies. And as he's still oscillating and vibrating, he takes the T-shirt and starts to roll it up over his body, revealing his big, hairy, fat belly. And when he takes the T-shirt off, he twirls it around like a tassel and throws it right at the tractor and continues to vibrate and oscillate. And he's dressed, well, hardly dressed at all by then. And he continues to do this, and then in a final dramatic flourish, he takes off his baseball cap and flings it into a pile of hay. And Cletus has seen enough. I mean, he walks in and he says, "Billy Bob, what in tarnation are you doing?" And Billy Bob says, "Oh, Cletus, boy, I didn't see you. You scared the bejesus out of me." "Well, I didn't mean to do that, but what are you doing?" "Well, the fact is, my wife and I, we've been having some problems, in the bedroom department. And we've been seeing a counselor about it. And he thought it might help if I did something sexy to a tractor."
Ervin, that was a first on my Systems Attached.
I like that one. It doesn't put anybody down, and I could see it could happen with some people.
It could happen.
But I needed a little not so serious space here.
I'm sorry. Did I get too serious on you?
No, we both did.
We both.
It's okay.
Did. Yeah. It's we can get silly. That's all right.
I like silly.
Yeah.
Silly is good.
Actually, off camera, there's many times where our friends or people who work with us would say, if people had any idea that you were like this, they wouldn't possibly believe it. Because I'm always quite serious on camera for the most part. But I have a ridiculous sense of humor as well.
Well,
you're not ridiculous. You're just very funny. Nothing ridiculous about it.
I think I feel better if there's humor and silliness.
Yeah. Have you always been like that? Did you do that at home with your very serious parents?
Not with them. The communication with them was really a non-event. But I got known among my schoolmates as having this sense of something or other, because when I'd say things, they thought I was serious.
Yes.
Because it sounded serious, but it was anything but.
Right.
And I don't know, I sort of capitalized on that.
I find like a dry, facetious humor does not translate in California.
No, it does
Most
not.
of the West Coast.
It does not.
Yeah, yeah. We have a very dry sense of humor in Canada, and particularly in Britain as well.
I like
We're
dry.
closer to that. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, people sometimes think I'm just being unkind here. They don't understand. I'm not trying to be unkind or hurt anyone's feelings.
Well, the other danger is that I say these things to people, and sometimes I just don't think they understand what I said.
Yeah. Yeah.
They give me these strange looks, like, what are you saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have to adjust. Yeah. Everywhere we go, we have to make some minor adjustments.
That we do.
Well, we don't have to, but if you want to get along,
you want to tell me a joke?
Do I want to tell you a joke?
Yeah.
Oh, man. If somebody put a gun to my head and said, tell me a joke, I don't remember them at all.
Well, I didn't tell you to tell me one. I said, can you?
Can I tell you a joke?
Could you? Would you? Might you?
I just make it all up as we go. I don't remember it at all.
Let me tell you one that I really like.
You have an incredible memory for this stuff. How many jokes do you think are in your repertoire?
150.
I can tell you my wife's joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do scuba divers always fall out of the boat backwards?
Why do scuba divers always fall out of the boat backwards?
Yeah. If they fell forward, they'd still be in the boat.
That is so dumb.
Yes, it is. But I gotta tell you, we were on a scuba diving trip with Brian Gallup and Joe Glazer, a couple of Luthier friends. Yeah. And Roberta was in the boat, I was in the boat, and there was a young girl who was on the trip for the first time, and she was looking sick, like absolutely terrified. She was snorkeling, not going to scuba dive. Roberta told her the joke. It broke the ice.
Good.
It was all good.
Good. I have a favorite British joke.
Yes.
Now, I know Irish jokes, but they all take place in bars or taverns.
Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
But this one is a British joke, and it really appeals to me. A group of friends gets together to celebrate their 40th birthday. And they have a discussion about where should they go to celebrate. Well, after a certain amount of back and forth, they decide to go to the Drover's Arms Inn in Uxley Township, which is down the road a few miles, because, well, the waitresses have large breasts and they wear short skirts, and the food's a fantastic value for the price. What's not to like? They go, they have a great time.
Yeah.
They get together again some years later to celebrate their 50th birthday. They have another discussion about where should they go to celebrate. And after a certain amount of back and forth, they decide to go to the Drover's Arms Inn in Uxley Township, which is down the road a few miles. Because, the service is very good. Everybody's very attentive. The food's really good. They've got a really great beer selection. So what's not to like? They go, they have a great time. They get together again later to celebrate their 60th birthday. And they talk about where should they go. Well, they decide to go to the Drover's Arms Inn because it's down in Uxley Township because, well, it's quiet. There's a lot of parking. There's no distractions. The food's not bad. So what's not to like? They go, they have a great time. They get together again to celebrate their 70th birthday and once again attempt to figure out where they want to go. Well, they decide to go to the Drover's Arms Inn in Uxley Township, down the road a few miles, Because, well, it's a nice place. There's wheelchair access, even in the bathrooms, plenty of parking, the food's decent. What's not to like? They have a great time. They get together again later to celebrate their 80th birthday and discuss where they should go. Well, they decide to go to the Drover's Arms Inn down in Uxley Township, which is down the road a few miles, because, well, they've never been there before. I like that one.
How am I going to get this one back on the rails? Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com.
Yeah, I'm not forgetting stuff right and left.
No, I enjoy this, and I can't think of you without thinking about getting it's always an email that comes after we meet.
Yeah,
with jokes.
Really?
Every time.
Okay.
Are we past your 80th birthday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm 82.
82. Yeah.
It's not a prime number, but it's a pretty good number.
Yeah. I've had a number of emails from you with a bunch of jokes.
I like jokes.
Yeah.
I really do.
Like jokes. I
really do.
I'm glad you told jokes in the podcast.
When I was young,
I'm the first guy to tell intentional jokes on our podcast.
Really?
More than 100 episodes in, no one has thought of it as a stand-up routine. I love this. You go.
Well, when I was young, men broke the ice by telling jokes to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like really dumb jokes, but that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody does that anymore. Men do other things. Women do other things. But
yeah.
I grew up hearing a lot of dumb jokes, and
Yeah.
I thought, hey, that's nice. But I talk to people, I meet people, I say, hi, do you know any jokes? No, I don't know any.
Discussion's over.
This never used to be the case. But in this generation...
Well, you would love going to visit where my family is from in Newfoundland, because they are just, they call them goofy Newfies. They just constantly joke.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Everything about the culture, all their tourist gifts and everything are all jokes about themselves. It's all calling themselves dumb. Not dumb, but they have a laugh at themselves all the time. Yeah.
That's a very healthy thing, I think.
Yeah. I think they're much happier than most because they do that all the time.
Speaking of that, I've been to the Montreal Guitar Show a few times.
Yes.
I don't think they're having it anymore.
No.
But I've been to 4 or 5 of them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go up to Montreal. I'd be there for about a week.
Yeah.
I felt comfortable there. There's something about the vibe, the atmosphere, that just felt good.
Mm-hmm.
The minute I came back to this country, I noticed the tension. Everybody's much more tense. Other people might not have noticed that, but I picked it up very clearly.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? Well, American culture is based in feeling threatened and surrounded by danger and enemies and disasters looming. Watch any movie.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong. One of the observations when people ask me about the differences, because our cultures are quite similar in many ways, being Canadian and from the US, and the main thing I say that you need to understand is the level of competition in the US. So every state has a rival state.
Oh, that's
every
right.
College has a rival college.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? So, well, listen, I remember going to Oklahoma once, showing guitars, of course. I'm in a guitar shop. And I mentioned something that someone had said about the guitars. They said, well, who said that to you? I said, a guy at last store in Texas, like, oh, Texas, huh? I said, oh, you don't like Texans? He goes, let me put it this way. When we watch for football, we vote for two teams, Oklahoma State and whoever's playing Texas.
That is so well put. Yeah.
I swear there's a rival nursery school for every nursery school. And it's not like they really hate each other, but there's just this constant competition.
That's what we're trained. That's what we're conditioned.
Yeah.
To behaving and thinking like.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember going to Nashville and seeing the bluegrass band down at the Station Inn, and they're all playing, and that's a lot of fun watching bluegrass players play together and trade off, because they all go from the banjo to the guitar to the mandolin to the fiddle, whatever it happens to be. And one of the guys, screwed up a little bit, and the band leader said, take it again, Kentucky. And Kentucky, you're in Nashville, and next thing you know, the guy's getting not bad insults, but getting ribbed from the audience. Like, oh, who the hell fucking let the
right? That's
the guy from Kentucky.
The accepted coin of exchange.
Yeah.
In this country.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I prefer not to see things as good and bad most of the time, but I see what can be the result from that. What do you think is the result of that sort of culture? What do you think that produces?
Which specific thing are you talking about?
The competitiveness, the baked-in competitiveness. What do you think that does for this culture?
It brings disaster.
Just disaster? I mean, this country's accomplished a lot. It's a prosperous country. There's a lot more disastrous countries in the world that you wouldn't want to live in, like literal hellholes.
It depends on how it look you at. Other countries that have a lot of poverty, from what I know, don't have as much family conflict. They accept their roles. They don't attack each other nearly as much. I mean, they may be poor, and they don't have TV sets and stuff, but they're more connected to who they are as people on this planet. I don't think Americans are much connected to that at all. Young people these days, I mean, look, I'm a disaster with electronics. I barely understand them. I get calls and I make phone calls in spite of the fact that this thing has zillions of apps that could be useful for me to learn, but I haven't, and I'm confused by them. But young kids, they're almost have doctorates in how to operate electronic devices, and they can work their apps and send messages and all of that, but they don't have anything that like what I had. They don't have any manual digital skills. They have no dexterity. So by the time they come to school, the teachers notice they don't even know how to work scissors.
Yeah.
They don't have the coordination to use scissors. So I'm not as impressed by the claims people make about this culture, because the culture is whatever people agree on it being. The reality is what really is going on. And the reality is not all that promising from my point of view. Now, granted, my having been a Holocaust survivor affects my outlook on life, but I don't think I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have a lot of people in this country that I consider friends, who I think are good people.
Yes. Yes.
And so, of course we see problems, we go places. But often we avoid such things. Honestly, when I go to Italy, you asked earlier on if I learned language. This is going to sound like the worst answer possible. I enjoy not knowing what people are saying around me. And it is such a peace to be outside and never, ever hear a complaint, because they could be complaining, but I don't know.
You said that about him. Yeah, right.
And it's amazing. And I went into Florence, and because we also want to see the beautiful tourist things there, not tourist things, but the things that tourists come to see. And we don't live very far from Florence. And but when you go into Florence, you absolutely see a lot of tourists. And at the restaurant, someone sat down behind me, and they ordered a double Jack in soda water. And for the rest of the meal, I was like, what the hell is a double Jack and soda water? Like, how do you make Jack Daniels worse? You put soda water in it. And I couldn't, I was so distracted by what they were saying, the things they ordered. They didn't order Italian food. They tried to order the most sort of wherever they were from sort of foods while they were there. They didn't have a glass of wine. You're in Tuscany, right? And honestly, it's a big criticism of myself that my brain starts sort of dissecting all these things. I don't think that they should be able to enjoy whatever the hell they want. If they want to order that drink instead of enjoying a Tuscan wine, that's
what's
fine.
What's a
double Jack Daniels in soda water?
Two shots?
Yeah, 2 shots in some soda water.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So, anyways, it doesn't really matter. The point is I was starting to obsess about it to a certain extent. And that's when I realized, like, why does this feel so strange right now? Like, oh, we've been here for 6 weeks already, and I haven't heard anything that I thought, well, that's stupid. Because I haven't understood it. There's that ignorance is bliss part of it.
Well, to the extent that I understand what you just said, I envy you.
Yeah.
No, because a lot of things aren't helpful to know about or understand, really.
Yeah.
In my case, it's the news. I try not to watch the news.
Yeah.
Because it distresses me.
Mm-hmm.
It's incomplete. It's biased.
Mm-hmm.
It's vague. I mean, it scares me, but there's no facts in it that I can work with.
It's not useful.
Not useful at all.
Yeah.
So my partner Karen watches news all the time, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
Now, being Canadians, I expect that you two will have, to some extent, a fundamentally different sense of the world than I do as an American.
Yeah, there's a cultural difference.
Yeah.
Cultural perspective difference.
Yeah.
It's I try and explain to other people what the Canadian thing is, and say, to understand the Canadian culture, I think this explains it, is that we're not a proud people.
In Canada.
Yeah. And that's the thing we're most proud of.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And then there's our fearless leader in Washington.
Well, I think that's it. There's been our whole lives, there's been a bravado, we're number one kind of America, kind of neighbor next door. Our neighbor next door has had this very big, like, we're on top, proudly stating America's number one sort of thing. And when you're the neighbor to someone who's always saying they're number one, you sort of juxtapose that with a sort of we favor humility.
There's a lot to be said for that. A lot to be said for it.
Yeah.
It's not offensive.
Yeah, well, that's our thing, isn't it? Politeness and I
doesn't hurt.
Offensive. But yeah, but that offensiveness comes from wanting to be open and wanting to find the truth, wanting to be authentic. You talked earlier on about being open, about apprentices needing to be open. And, openness is actually one of the 5 sort of categories that psychologists look at, and it's one of the important ways.
As what?
It's the big 5 personality traits.
Oh, what's one of the big 5?
Yeah. Openness. How open you are or not open you are.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Agreeableness is another one. How agreeable you are or how disagreeable you are. And disagreeable doesn't mean like you're obstinate. It just means, like, are you willing to disagree? When someone says something, you say, I don't think so. Are you sure? That's a nice way to be disagreeable. But any entrepreneur or any self-employed person, for the most part, has to well, not any self-employed, like artisans, not necessarily, but any business person, entrepreneur has to rank fairly high in disagreeableness, because you have to be willing to live a life that others aren't willing to live. You have to be able to ask questions. You're certainly rank high in disagreeableness. So, but you also rank high in empathy. And so if you rank high in openness and high in or low in agreeableness, but low in empathy, then you have like sociopaths or psychopaths. And
Yeah,
so the
yeah.
Empathy part is how
Then
you
you can
treat
go
other
into
people.
politics. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, so anyways, the point is openness
Mhm.
is one of those things that you identified earlier on, that's important. And so within my culture, what that means is, how do you disagree politely?
That's it's a tricky balancing act, that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
From the depths of the crypt at St. Giles came a scream that resounded for miles. Said the vicar, "Good gracious, has Father Ignatius forgotten the bishop has piles?" Sorry, it just came out.
He's like Crazy Harry.
Who?
Do you know who Crazy Harry is?
No.
So Crazy Harry was a Muppet. Did you ever watch any of the Muppets at one point?
Well, 500 years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. So Crazy Harry was the Muppet that every once in a while would just run into the scene with like a dynamite detonator and like blow up the scene.
That I never saw.
And when he was there regularly, and when you talk with the people, I've seen in interviews with Jim Henson or Frank Oz, they say Crazy Harry was there for when the Muppets got a little too self-absorbed.
That's
You're
very
like Crazy
sweet.
Harry. This space is normally reserved for brands who make stories like this possible, like the Dario and the Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop. If your company belongs in this conversation, let's talk. We partner with brands who value craft, culture, and the quiet power of a well-placed idea. Like, time to blow it up. Bring in a joke.
Well, yeah, it's one of my weirder characteristics, but yeah, you got me.
I like it. I like it. When Brian Gallup was first getting to know us, we were at an event during Miami Art Week at Art Basel, and Brian looked at Roberta and says, "Does he ever like relax?" She's like, "You're just seeing him at work." Brian's like, "I'm going to get this guy to relax." That was like his goal. Jamie's too serious all the time. But when I'm at a show and my job is to make sure the customers are taken care of and you're in a full room, oh yeah, I'm like a hawk on a wire.
You
Just
have
watching
lots
it
of
observing.
interpersonal skills. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about that. Because you use them. You have to use them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ervin, before we get too serious again, and before you feel the urge to blow this up, as we wrap up every interview, I always throw it back to the guest and say, is there something today that you hoped that we would talk about together? Something that you wanted to talk about from your own work, or a question you might have about something that we're doing? Last one's to you.
No, I was prepared to have a conversation with you. I didn't have any agenda in mind.
Mhm.
You asked about lots of stuff that would have been important to ask about,
Mhm.
and I responded. But I'm not dissatisfied. I'm okay.
Mhm. Good.
I can't think of any other questions.
All right. I thought you and I might get into the line between art and guitar at some point in time, but if that's a little too serious for this day, we can save it for another time.
No, we could do that. It's not a conversation I have all that often.
Mhm. I feel it's one of the only things we talk about, which is not that often, I guess.
Well, one of the basic things that I seem to operate out of mentally
Mhm.
is the belief that we don't really know what anything is. Now, fishes understand the world in their own way perfectly,
Mhm.
but we wouldn't understand that.
Mhm.
Cows understand the world perfectly, in ways that are completely mysterious to us. the way we understand the world is completely mysterious to even ourselves. I mean, if we had eyes that were receptive to different frequencies like ultraviolet or infrared, we'd see the world so differently than we do now. If gravity were different than it is, we'd understand things differently. Everything would be a different size. Porpoises are intelligent. If porpoises had a god, that god would be wet, because that's their world. Our God isn't wet. So there's a lot left to be said about exactly what is anything. And I can always think of that in any discussion I'm having with somebody, because everything we know, almost everything we know, is cognitive as a function of how our brains function. That's not all that compatible with the emotional side of our psyches, but that exists. Things feel good or bad or warm or threatening or whatever. And those are realities, but the cognitive part doesn't really believe in those kinds of realities. It believes in, like, okay, this door can be closed, I can't come in, that kind of thing. So I could talk about things in lots of ways that I think I'd agree with, but I could back away from them and not be sure of what the facts really were, if that makes any sense to you.
Well, it does. Perspective and observation and everything is assigned meaning. And someone's assigning meaning and you're assigning meaning, and that meaning is somewhat negotiable.
Yeah. I mean, like in my autobiography that I told you I'd been writing.
Yes.
My sense of the world was formed before I was 3 years old. After that point, I already had sort of a kind of a personality. But before then, no, I was just this bundle of sponge-like neurons that absorbed everything. And I discovered in writing this that it's really difficult to put words to a lot of things that I feel. Those are really different things. So I don't really believe in words, except they're useful. My reality is largely emotional, because that's the water I lived in the very first parts of my life. There are no words. They're just things that I floated in. And that left a big impression, a very long-lasting impression.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is getting kind of heavy.
Yet you love etymology and you love words and multiple
I
languages.
really do like words. I really do like words.
I'm not sure I'm convinced that you live mainly emotionally when
You're right. There is
so
a
much time
cognitive part.
writing.
Yeah. What was I thinking? But I am very empathetic.
You're very verbal.
I think more so than most people.
Yeah.
I have empathy. I have feelings. I have thoughts. They are regulated by emotional states that I lived in when I first arrived on this planet, largely. And do you know George Lakoff? Do you know the name George Lakoff?
I don't think so. No.
He's a very, very famous author. Used to be professor at Cal and other major universities. He's retired now. He's a very bright guy. He's a bit on the spectrum, but really bright. He got interest. His field is linguistics. He's been writing about that forever. But he got interested at one point in what is it with these Democrats and the Republicans, and they can't agree, and these conservatives and these liberals. That wasn't anything that he really thought about before, but he was writing something that got him interested in that as a related factor. So he looked into it, and he came up with a very interesting conclusion, which he's written, I think, 2 books about. Our opinions, our prejudices, our values are gotten entirely from the parenting we've received. Our parenting turns us into conservatives or liberals or whatever you want to call it. And when I first heard that, I thought, shit, that's ridiculous. But no, that makes more and more sense to me. And that aspect of reality is subverbal and subconscious. All the political stuff, the evangelists in this country, the evangelists believe that there are rules that are set down by the boss. Could be God, could be the father figure or whatever. And there are rules that are right about things that are right or wrong, and you have to follow them. And these people can't think outside of that box. But this is an enormous reality in this culture. So I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's in most cultures. The religious context is how we organize and how we negotiate, because we have to have some sort of rule around common law, right?
Yes.
And so the earliest iterations of that are a religious iteration. And although we have moved away from it primarily, I think there's actually a big growth rate now in religion because sort of post-death of God, we have found ourselves in total chaos and we're looking to anchor ourselves again. Yeah.
There you go.
And we're not sure how to anchor ourselves, but there is a way we used to anchor ourselves. And in absence of a better version, we're looking to any port in the storm.
Well, I'm caught up in those ambivalences and ambiguities. Because I live among them. Now, in Canada, I don't know, maybe less. But this country is so polarized.
My brother is extremely religious.
I'm sorry?
My brother is extremely religious. And actually, my wife and I met because my brother and her stepfather played in a Christian heavy metal band together.
Okay.
And I toured as a Christian rock musician at one point in time in my life. I don't currently hold the same set of beliefs as I once did, but I'm very familiar with it.
Are Canadians, you think, as polarized as Americans?
Not as polarized.
I don't think they are either.
I think the entire world has the differences you're talking about, but we go to greater extremes. And there's some places where you can't express it, right? There's actually still a large part of this world where there is not religious freedom.
Tell me more.
Oh, I mean, I think there's 40 Islamist countries in the world, 37 of which are totalitarian states where you be imprisoned or murdered for being something else.
I forgot about that.
So I interviewed Grit Laskin a couple of weeks ago, and Grit made a guitar for himself, which has 4 Persian female martyrs on the fretboard that were murdered or imprisoned for taking off their head covering or for saying something they weren't supposed to say, wearing their hair incorrectly. The institution.
Well, how could I forget about that?
It's really hard for us to remember in the free Western world that there are actually places in current time, not historical times, current times where you can't have a conversation in public that disagrees with the current narrative. When you suffer that, you take it back to the Nazi occupation that you were born into. And so, and so there is still places in the world where there's total order, if you will say, and there's a great desire for liberation, for freedom in some way.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Amazing how much I don't think of when I'm having a conversation like this.
Yeah, you know, one of the reasons I don't have the religious beliefs I once did is I just saw too much of the world and said, this doesn't jive with how much of the world I've seen and how many other people who have a different set of beliefs than I have, who are also reasonable people. And when we talk about things, I just can't come to a zero-sum conclusion that they didn't say this particular set of words and therefore they're going to hell. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Got it.
Yeah.
Can I offer you guys a little artistic peg-head veneer to put on your wall?
I would love that.
Come pick
Shall we
one.
wrap this up first? Ervin,
Sure. What do we have left to do?
just to say goodbye.
Oh.
Thanks. Thank you for being on Life with Strings Attached. Thank you for your contribution to the guitar. And thank you for bringing and being a part of the lives to bring out the amazing people like a Michihiro Matsuda into our world. We are part of that narrative also. And I think you have made the world just a little better, a little more of a world that I want to live in. And I'm glad that I know you. And I want to say thank you.
Yeah. Let me just mention one thing about Michi.
Yeah.
That was a stroke of luck. I had decided at a certain point back in, I think, the 90s, that I really needed some permanent and not part-time help at the shop. So I didn't know what else to do except to approach schools like the Roberto Venn one and say, look, I'm looking for help. I could teach, train these people, blah, blah, blah. If you have any students who are about to graduate who would like to do this, put them in touch with me.
Yeah.
So I did that right before this one class graduated. So the timing was impeccable. And Michi was one of those people in that class. He came over during Christmas break. We got to know each other. And we decided, yeah, we can work together. And we did. And Michi had come to the States out of an act of unbelievable courage. He had read about the Roberto Venn School in some Japanese publication.
Yeah.
He didn't know English. He didn't know guitar making. He didn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But he quit his job, left his friends, his home, his culture, his language, his foods, came to the States to study guitar making at Roberto Venn. And in Japan, if you quit your job, you can never go back. I mean, that was an act of extraordinary courage. And then, I put the word out. He came to me, and we decided to work together. And he spoke primitive, very basic English. He didn't know a lot of words. And I don't know how he learned anything because a lot of this stuff would have been communicated verbally at the school. But in Japan, you learn by looking. It's called stealing from the teacher. So he observed and he learned. And by the time he came to me, he knew almost passable English. And conversations were very slow because he'd have to think of the words. But we were together for a long time. And one of the things I really cannot forget is that every now and then I'd feel ready to take a break. And the conversations went like this. I said, Michi, when I said something to Michi, he would listen to it in English, translate it into Japanese, think about it, come up with an answer in Japanese, translate that into English, and then deliver it. So I'd say, Michi, you want to go get a coffee? Yes. God, just drove me crazy. But it was like that. And he is, I don't have words for it. He's he does things I can't.
Mm.
And I don't think he had any artistic training.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where he got that from.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very Japonesque sense of aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't pick out, he didn't get in his school, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
He just had it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we have done his interview and captured that story. He told me he basically didn't speak English when he arrived here. And I did ask him, and he told me he observed.
His English was minimal.
Yeah.
Which is another aspect of his being so brave to come to a foreign country where you didn't understand anything and try to learn this new thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really insane.
Yes. And no offense to Phoenix, but he landed in Phoenix in the summertime also, like that.
It didn't help. Yeah.
Right in the middle of the desert in insufferable heat. There had to have been a moment like, what am I doing here?
I was in Phoenix once. It was that time of the year. Everything
Yeah.
was unbelievably hot.
Yeah.
When I walked around, the asphalt under my feet would take my shoe impressions. It was so soft from the heat. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been very nice. I'm very happy to have spent some time with both of you.
Yes.
And I would like you to pick out some kind of peghead veneer arty type thing.
Thank you very much. That would be an honor.
You want to come and help pick one out?
Yeah. Sure. All right. Let's say goodbye for now. You've been listening to Life with Strings Attached. If today's conversation meant something to you, consider passing it on. These stories find their place through the people who share them. A new episode comes out every Friday, right here, wherever you're listening. I'm Jamie Gale, and thanks for listening to Life with Strings Attached.